March 18, 2024. Government Boys High School, Sector 7, an abandoned campus on the outskirts of Rahim-Yar Khan, Punjab. At exactly 2:14 a.m., the security system recorded its first major anomaly. The footage begins with a static wide-angle camera mounted at the end of the second-floor main hallway. Rows of rusted metal lockers line both sides. The emergency lights are dim, casting a sickly yellow glow. For nearly a minute, nothing moves. Then, at 2 hours 14 minutes and 37 seconds, locker number 47 suddenly slams shut with violent force. 3 seconds later, locker 52 opens by itself. Then locker 19. The sounds echo through the empty corridor like gunshots. No one had entered the building since the school was officially closed in 2022. Government Boys High School was once one of the largest government schools in the region, built in 1987. It served over 1,200 students until financial issues and declining enrollment forced its permanent closure 2 years ago. The 3-story building now stands empty, surrounded by overgrown grounds and a crumbling boundary wall. The local education department kept a basic security system with 14 cameras and 1 night guard to prevent vandalism and theft of furniture. The night guard on duty that month was Rashid Khan, a 47-year-old former army corporal, realistic adult male with short salt and pepper hair, serious weathered face, wearing a faded olive green security uniform with a reflective vest and ID badge. He carried a standard industrial flashlight and a small surveillance tablet connected to the central system. Rashid was responsible for patrolling the grounds and checking the camera feeds from a small control room near the main gate every night. He had been working this shift for 3 weeks without any major incidents. Until the night of March 18. At 2:14 a.m., Rashid was sitting in the ground floor control room when the motion alert started flooding in. He looked at the monitor showing the second-floor hallway and watched in disbelief as multiple locker doors began opening and slamming shut in sequence. He immediately grabbed his industrial flashlight and tablet and headed upstairs. The stairwell camera captured him climbing to the second floor at 2:16 and 12 seconds a.m. When he reached the main hallway, everything was dead silent. All lockers were closed. No signs of forced entry. No broken locks. Rashid walked slowly down the corridor, his flashlight beam sweeping across the rows of metal lockers. At locker 47, he stopped. The metal surface felt unusually cold. As he touched it, the locker right next to it, number 48, suddenly flew open with a loud bang, stopping just inches from his face. Startled, Rashid stepped back. At that exact moment, the hallway camera recorded a faint figure, a boy in an old-style school uniform, standing motionless at the far end of the corridor near the science lab door. The boy appeared to be around 14 years old, with short black hair and a pale face. He stood perfectly still for 7 seconds before slowly turning and walking into one of the empty classrooms. Rashid spun around and ran toward the end of the hallway, but when he reached the classroom, it was completely empty. Dust on the floor showed no footprints. This was only the beginning. Rashid Khan stood frozen in the second-floor hallway of the abandoned Government Boys High School at 2:18 a.m. on March 18, 2024. His industrial flashlight beam trembled slightly as he swept it across the rows of metal lockers. The loud banging had stopped, but the silence felt heavier than before. He checked every locker that had moved, all of them were now firmly closed. The locks showed no signs of damage. He immediately returned to the ground floor control room and began reviewing the raw footage frame by frame. The system had 14 cameras, but only the second-floor main hallway camera had triggered that night. Rashid exported the clip and watched it multiple times. The locker movements were not random. They followed a clear sequence: 47 slammed shut, 52 opened, 19 slammed, then 48 flew open right in front of him. At 3:07 a.m., a second event occurred. The same hallway camera captured a group of faint phantom student figures, 4 boys in old school uniforms, walking silently down the corridor in single file. They moved with unnatural smoothness, their feet appearing to glide just above the dusty tile floor. The figures stopped near the science lab, turned toward the camera for a moment, then disappeared into the wall as if the building had swallowed them. Rashid, now visibly shaken, called the local education department supervisor at 3:45 a.m. The supervisor dismissed it as old wiring problems and told him to ignore minor glitches. Rashid knew better. He had served 15 years in the army, he trusted his eyes and the footage. Evidence Analysis and Technical Discoveries, 1330 to 1930, by Sunrise, Rashid had compiled a detailed report. He noticed several technical anomalies that the basic security system could not explain. First, the motion sensors in the hallway were triggering even when no physical movement was visible on camera. Second, the timestamp synchronization between the video feed and the system log showed consistent microdelays of 0.9 seconds, exactly the same delay every time an anomaly occurred. Rashid contacted a private security technician from Rahim Khan who arrived later that morning. After running diagnostics, the technician confirmed that all 14 cameras were functioning normally with no malware or remote access. However, he found one disturbing detail: the audio recording from the hallway camera had captured faint whispering voices in the background during the locker incidents. When enhanced, the whispers sounded like young boys reciting Urdu poetry verses commonly taught in government schools during the 1990s. Over the next 8 nights, the activity escalated dramatically. On March 20 at 1:52 a.m., the classroom camera inside room 12 recorded desks and chairs slowly rearranging themselves into perfect rows, even though the room had been empty for 2 years. The movement was slow and deliberate, as if invisible students were preparing for class. On March 22 at 2:41 a.m., the main hallway camera captured something even more disturbing. A single phantom student, the same boy Rashid had seen on the first night, stood directly in front of locker 47, staring at it for 43 seconds. Then he slowly turned his head and looked straight into the camera with empty, dark eyes. The boy's uniform was from an older era, faded blue shirt and gray pants that were no longer used in the school. Rashid began keeping a personal log. His entry for March 23 read, "They are not just shadows. They know the layout better than I do. They know when I am watching." Escalating Strange Events, 1930 to 28:30, by March 25, the phenomena became more aggressive and focused. At 2:09 a.m., all locker doors on the left side of the second-floor hallway began slamming in rapid succession, creating a wave of sound that traveled the entire length of the corridor. Rashid, who was on patrol, ran upstairs and arrived just as the last locker slammed. As he stood there catching his breath, every locker door on the right side suddenly opened at the same time, revealing old notebooks and faded photographs left behind by former students. The most disturbing event happened on March 27 at 3:22 a.m. The hallway camera recorded approximately 15 to 20 phantom student figures walking silently in formation down the corridor toward the staircase. They moved in perfect synchronization, as if heading to morning assembly. Rashid watched the live feed from the control room and decided to confront them. When he reached the second floor, the corridor was empty, but the dusty floor now showed dozens of fresh barefoot footprints leading toward the old assembly hall. Later that same night, at 4:01 a.m., the assembly hall camera captured the phantom student standing in neat rows facing the stage, as if listening to an invisible teacher. One figure, a taller boy who appeared to be a prefect, stepped forward and pointed directly toward the camera before the entire group vanished simultaneously. Rashid noticed a clear pattern: the activity always peaked between 1:50 a.m. and 4:10 a.m., and it was becoming more interactive. The entities seemed to respond to his presence. On nights when he stayed in the control room, the activity was milder. When he patrolled the second floor, the events became louder and more direct. By the end of March, Rashid had stopped sleeping during the day. He began carrying an extra flashlight and refused to enter the second floor without recording a voice memo first. His final log entry before the events reached their peak read, "They are not ghosts of the past. They are still attending school. And they don't want me here." The night of March 29, 2024 became the most documented and terrifying night in the history of the abandoned government boys' high school. At 1:57 a.m., every single one of the 14 cameras in the building activated simultaneously. Rashid Khan was in the ground floor control room when the monitors lit up with multiple motion alerts from the second floor. He watched in real time as the main hallway camera showed dozens of phantom student figures appearing all at once. They were not faint shadows anymore, they looked almost solid under the dim yellow emergency lighting. The students, all wearing the old faded blue shirts and gray pants from the 1990s, began walking in perfect formation down the second-floor hallway. Locker doors slammed open and shut in rhythm with their steps, creating a horrifying synchronized sound. Rashid counted at least 25 to 30 figures. Some carried old school bags, others held notebooks. They moved with purpose, as if heading to their morning assembly. At 2:03 a.m., the figures stopped in front of room 12. One by one, they entered the classroom. The interior camera showed the desks and chairs arranging themselves automatically into neat rows while the phantom students took their seats. A taller boy, the same prefect figure Rashid had seen before, stood at the front near the blackboard, facing the class as if ready to lead a lesson. Rashid could not stay away. He grabbed his industrial flashlight and surveillance tablet and ran upstairs. His heavy footsteps echoed through the empty stairwell. When he reached the second-floor hallway at 2:06 a.m., the slamming lockers suddenly stopped. The corridor was completely silent. He slowly approached room 12, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. As he reached the doorway, the classroom camera feed showed every phantom student turning their heads in unison to look directly toward the door, toward Rashid. Major discovery and technical breakthrough, 38:00 to 46:00. Inside the control room later that night, Rashid made a critical technical discovery while reviewing the raw footage. He noticed that during every major event, the old intercom system, which had been disconnected since the school closed, was somehow receiving power. When he connected his tablet to the system and enhanced the audio, he heard clear voices. Dozens of young boys' voices were reciting the morning attendance roll call. Roll number 1. Asif Ahmed. Present. Roll number 7. Bilal Khan. Present. Roll number 19. Imran Raza. Present. The names continued for nearly 2 minutes. Rashid cross-checked the old school records that were still stored in the abandoned office. All the names matched students who had studied in the school between 1995 and 2002. Several of those students had died in a tragic bus accident in 2003 while returning from a school trip. The bus had overturned near the irrigation canal just 2 kilometers from the school. The most chilling part was the final name called by the prefect, roll number 47. Rashid Khan. Absent. The voice repeated it 3 times. Rashid stared at the screen in disbelief. His own name had never been part of any school record here, he had studied in a different town. Climax and the final night, 46:00 to 54:00. On March 30th, Rashid decided to confront the phenomena directly. He stayed on the second floor the entire night, patrolling the hallway with his flashlight and recording everything on his tablet. At 2:41 a.m., the activity reached its peak. All locker doors on both sides of the hallway flew open at once. From inside the lockers, old school uniforms, notebooks, and faded photographs began floating out and arranging themselves in midair. The phantom students reappeared, now standing in a semicircle around Rashid. The prefect boy stepped forward until he was only a few feet away from Rashid. For the first time, his face was clearly visible, a 15-year-old boy with empty black eyes. He raised his hand and pointed directly at Rashid, then slowly pointed toward the staircase leading down. At 3:12 a.m., the entire building's emergency lights began flickering rapidly. The hallway camera captured Rashid backing away as the phantom students started moving toward him in unison. Their mouths moved as if chanting something, but no sound came through the main audio. Only the enhanced recording later revealed the words, "Join the class, you are late." Rashid turned and ran down the stairs. Behind him, every locker door slammed shut with explosive force, one after another, following him all the way to the ground floor. The control room camera showed him bursting in, locking the door, and collapsing into the chair, breathing heavily. At exactly 3:47 a.m., the same time the tragic bus accident had occurred years earlier, all 14 cameras lost signal for 89 seconds. When the feed returned, the second floor was completely silent. All lockers were closed. The phantom students were gone. But something had changed. On the dusty tile floor of the second-floor hallway, fresh barefoot footprints now led from room 12 all the way to the top of the staircase, and then stopped. Next to them was a new set of adult-sized boot prints, matching the exact pattern of Rashid Khan's security boots. Unresolved mystery ending, 54:00 to 58:00, the Education Department finally sent a team to investigate after Rashid submitted his final report. They reviewed all footage, interviewed Rashid, and even brought in technical experts. No logical explanation was found for the locker movements, the phantom figures, the voices, or the perfect synchronization of events. Rashid Khan resigned the very next week. He refused to return to the school even to collect his final pay. In his last recorded statement he said, "I thought I was guarding an empty building. But the building was never empty. They are still attending school, and now they have marked me as absent." The abandoned government boys' high school remains closed to this day. The security system is still active, maintained by a remote company. Occasionally, late-night operators report sudden motion alerts from the second-floor hallway, always between 1:50 a.m. and 4:10 a.m. Lockers can still be heard slamming on the audio feeds. Some local residents claim that on quiet nights, if you stand near the boundary wall, you can hear faint voices of boys reciting poetry and the sound of desks being arranged for morning assembly. The phantom students never left. They are still waiting for the final roll call to be complete. And according to the last logged entry in the system on February 14, 2025, at 2:14 a.m., exactly the same time as the very first incident, locker number 47 slammed shut by itself. The school is still waiting for its students to return.